Welcome to the BrightWord Books Podcast. BrightWord is a leading platform for diverse storytelling, where voices from all backgrounds can share their unique narratives and connect with readers from around the world. Follow our regular podcast updates, where we strive to foster a literary community that celebrates creativity, inclusivity, and the transformative power of literature.
Today, we are very, very honored to welcome back a compelling author whose work continues to resonate deeply with readers and advocates for justice across the country. Her book, Justice Denied, tells the heart-wrenching yet inspiring story of Cara, which is a devoted mother whose life is turned upside down when her son Romeo is falsely accused of unthinkable crimes. What begins as a young romance quickly descends into a nightmare of lies, betrayal, and a deeply flawed legal system. So as she navigates a world filled with false accusations and corrupt institutions, her unwavering faith in God becomes her guiding light. Through scripture, prayer, and unshakable love, she fights to protect her son and seeks the justice that they both deserve. This isn't just a story about injustice. It's a powerful statement to a mother's love, spiritual resilience, and the hope that shines even in the darkest times. So whether you are here as a reader, a justice reform advocate, or someone who's seeking hope through hardship, this conversation is for you. Claudette, hi, and how are you doing today?
Doing well, thank you. Hello, everyone.
Hello, and we're very, very happy to have you back.
Thank you.
Yeah, it says your first appearance. How has the response to Justice Denied, how has it been, and how has it impacted your personal and professional life?
Greatly. In a positive way, in the sense that negatively, as you can imagine, like my son is still there in
Hmm.
prison, due to be
Right.
released very soon, but he's still there. And he'll wake up, when he calls me or email me, he says, Ma, I wake up, it's like a bad dream. It's like I see myself in this house with all these people. It's like, what am I
Right.
doing here? And he had to it takes a minute for him to realize he's still there.
Right.
And
Right. Right.
it's like, yeah, it's crazy.
I understand, um, and I empathize with the
Hmm.
situation that you're in and the situation that he's
Yes.
in. Have any individuals, whether it be readers, maybe legal professionals, or those directly affected, maybe, did any of them reach out after reading the book?
Not yet, but many of the people who bought the book did reach out, but
Right.
not on the podcast, but some of my community reach out to
Right.
offer more
And
support. My community, the Haitian community, they reach
lovely.
out to offer more support, and they invited me to go to their show too, to talk, to speak about the tragedy
This,
or
the situation as a whole.
yeah,
Yeah.
at hand.
And in those conversations, what would you say stood out the most?
What stood out the most is the officials,
Mm,
the judicial system, the like people like the district attorney. I
mm,
must have written at least 20 letters. I never got even one answer. And this is a man of all people who should know
right.
about about being unfair, because he's a black man, and he's the leader of a big company. And the
Mm,
state of Massachusetts, I want the readers or the listeners to hear that we are number 2 in the nation. In fact, I'm going to send that article. I already sent it to Steve. I'd like Steve to give it to you. I'd like this
mm,
posted. We are number 2 in the nation to wrongly convict on rape.
right.
And based on my son's trial, I can see how this is so, because
Right.
my son is convicted on no rape kit. The Boston police never ordered a rape kit. My son is convicted on he says, she says, and the medical record that proved the case, the trial judge, a very racist judge, she impounded it. Impounding means seal it. And usually when they impound things, you'll never see it again. It's
Yes.
never available to the general population again. The only reason I have it, and I consider this record to be a thorn in Massachusetts leaders' body. It's going to
Right.
be a thorn forever. And there's nothing they can do, because what happened is with this record, we close all the loopholes.
Mm.
With this record, we prove they corrupt. With these records, we prove the unthinkable. They're a disgrace.
Right.
And so far, no judge yet has, stood to say, stand up yet to say there was ineffective counseling. And do you know what bothers me the most? I'm going to tell
Right.
you. What bothers me the most is this 85-year-old lawyer who was assigned my son's case. Now is deceased. Now is deceased, but he did this before he was deceased.
Right.
A couple of things happened. I'd like the listeners to hear.
Right.
He's deceased, okay. I filed a complaint to the bar overseers where they handle licenses to lawyers. After you pass the exam, the nurses, you have the Nursing Bar Association. This case, you have the Bar Association for the lawyers.
Right.
So I filed a complaint, sent it in. Instead of a formal complaint, instead of the company, the bar overseers sending me a formal letter in reply to my complaint, the person from bar overseas called me instead. And she called me with a very hostile call. She
Right.
says,
Tone.
she says, Miss, I'd like to talk to Miss Claudette Cupidon. I says, this is she. And then the next word out of her mouth is, I see you filed a complaint against a dead lawyer. What do you want me to do with a dead lawyer? We
Right.
can't punish dead lawyers. I said, ma'am, I filed a complaint against a dead lawyer now, but this thing happened in 2019. He
Right.
wasn't dead then. In fact, he was very much involved, and he was the defense lawyer who failed to investigate the case.
Right.
And investigation is the knee jerk of any case, every case,
Obviously,
civil or
yes.
criminal. If you don't investigate, how do you
Get the
conclude
facts.
anything?
Yeah.
Right. It's to check facts, balances, and everything. This lawyer requested money for investigation. They gave him $1,000 for that. He never hired one because my son wanted to talk to the investigator. He never talked to any investigator. This is
Right.
what bothers me. That kills me. The next thing, this accuser has bipolar.
Right.
So this lawyer must have known that was important because he requested money to hire an expert. They gave him $2,000. He never hired
Hired anyone.
an expert. And it's evidenced by the witness list. The
Right.
witness list is what tells us who was
What
there.
happened? Yeah.
Okay. So this accuser had autism. This lawyer must have known that was important because he requested funds to hire an autism expert. They gave him
Right.
$2,000 again. So
But
they
let me
gave him a
guess.
total of $5,000.
Nobody showed up. I'm
You-
starting to see a pattern here.
a pattern.
Mhm.
So you see why we're number 2 in the nation to wrongly convict?
Right.
And now
Right.
I'm beginning to suspect that the same trio who did my son's trial must have been the one giving us that record, the
Right.
Massachusetts, because they corrupt their, I don't even have a name for these people. They corrupt, they're racist, everything. What
Right.
happened to my son was
They're
a
evil.
racist thing. Evil.
Yeah. Evil.
I don't know. This is crazy. So this defense lawyer,
Mm-hmm.
never hired
Anyone
any investigator,
mm-hmm.
never hired experts, and they
for
gave him
autism or bipolar.
$5,000. Yes, he did none of that. But guess
Mm-hmm.
what? I was the only witness he called for my son. When he could have called nurses, when he could
Right.
have called doctors, he could have called
Experts,
a number.
investigators.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
There would have been a lot of
No.
facts offered.
So now, when Massachusetts is trying to ignore it,
Mm-hmm.
and the thing is, we have the record. And guess what? The most evil person in this was the judge, the trial judge,
Mm.
because she, the record in question, the day of the arrest, the
Right.
record in question, she says, these are private records. So I'm going to seal them. I'm going to impound them. She did this. Any lawyer who's monitoring this, she did this on page 1-11 of the transcript, because these things I remember.
Mm-hmm.
Page 1-11 on the transcript, she impounded the record. And that record, if you see the complaint filed against my son, and then you see the February 4th record, if you compare them side by side, you'll want to throw up, because it has something about, they say my son fed alcohol to rape.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no better witness than lab test, a blood test.
Right.
Because
Yes. You
the
can
person
test the
can make a
alcohol.
mistake. They took her blood, and it says no ethanol, which is
Right.
alcohol, in
Yes.
her
Meaning she
system.
did not drink.
Yes. That was a lie. Okay.
Right.
And then the February 4th record also has things like, she told the emergency room doctors there were no complaints of sexual assault.
Right.
But
So where did this come from?
she got on the stand and said sexual assault.
Well, how did that happen?
And then the lawyers, and then there's one particular thing I'd like to talk to you about too, is lab results. But in any case, if anyone compared the complaint and the February 4th record, these people were so corrupt that they lost their mind in that courtroom, because they've done it. They must have done it so many times. That's my take on it. They must have done it so many times. They lost their mind. And it appears that it's almost that the trial judge thought that nobody else was going to read these transcripts. She lost her mind. Now, one particular thing I'd like to tell you before I forget is lab results.
Right.
Yes. In 2017, that's when they charged my son. First of all, I want to talk to you about indictment before I get to that. The game of indictment in this country is a very racist thing. It's a one-sided thing. Do you know in an indictment, only the prosecutor is there with 20 grand juries, with the grand juries?
That's
No
all you need,
defense
apparently.
lawyers, nobody else.
It's just one side of the story.
This system is there to railroad black and brown people, non-white people. It's a shame.
And ma'am, if I can ask you, before you had the interaction with the legal system, did you have a different idea about it?
Yes, I'm a nurse. I've been practicing nursing for over 20 something years.
Wow.
Do you know what I thought? I'm gonna tell you what I thought.
That's what I'm interested in.
You're gonna get the answer.
Please give me.
It's disappointing. It's disappointing, but I apologize to all these people. Do you know what I thought before? I thought, you guilty. You there for 40 years, 20 years. You must have done it. There's no way we would find you guilty when you weren't guilty, until it happens to my son, I swear. I thought these people that whenever you found guilty is because you were guilty in this country, because I respected the system. I trust the system. I trust everything.
Right.
I never thought we were so derailed, that we were so corrupt, that we were so wicked.
And
This I
defective.
didn't know this is how we treated citizens in this country.
Right, right,
Okay.
right.
I thought until I start seeing more people been in prison for 40 years, 30 years for murder, for things, and then they reverse the verdict. I'm like, and then it happens to my own son. And that changed my mind completely. I'm one of them that used to blame people and say, hey, how would we find you guilty when you go to court?
Right.
And
Because
then
maybe you have been in nursing so much that you've seen so many blood test results, and you say, well, how did we find ethanol if you didn't drink? And so that's pretty much how you always thought, well, if there is evidence, then you did the thing. You
and
didn't
guess what?
interact
The
where the evidence can be manipulated. And
Yes.
because you can't manipulate blood, but you can
You
manipulate
cannot
something that
manipulate
happened. Yeah. Yes.
No, and I think that's exactly why this judge, they should bring they should bring charges against her. Because this judge now, do you know this May 28th will be 6 years of my son being in there because of this judge? And by the way, the prosecutor was disgraced and fired. I think, yeah.
Figures.
But they didn't say, they say other corruptions, but guess what he did? At the last day of trial, he thanks the judge for giving him leeway. So I sent that to the district attorney. I sent that to the governor. I sent that to everybody. The next thing I heard, he's fired. And you know what happened to my son is a racist thing, because he was black against white, and then they railroaded him. This judge is very racist, because I think that's why she did that. She impounded or sealed them.
Right.
Listen, defendants should be allowed to present their evidence. It doesn't matter. And do you know what else this judge did that bothers me so much? I wanted to tell you right now so I don't forget. This judge, like I said, defendants should be allowed to present their evidence.
Obviously, yes.
This judge mutilated my son's civil rights, because the evidence about no complaint of sexual assault,
No
lab
alcohol.
results that contradicted the story.
Her testimony, yeah.
Her testimony strictly is the only one that brings my son to prison. And she committed perjury on the stand.
Yes.
And they're gonna get to listen. I'm not bragging, but I close all the loopholes. I corner them in 4 corners. How will they get? And I'm holding the February 4th record, which and guess what? It looks like this judge thought we would never find these February 4th record. Guess how we found it, by the way? A lawyer asked me that. I'm going to tell you. A lawyer said, Claudette, how do you get your hands on impounded records? Usually when they impound it, you
never see them again.
Access. Nobody. I said, do you know how I got it? It appears that the defense lawyer, the corrupt defense lawyer, was not on the same page as the corrupt judge and the prosecutor. Because the corrupt defense lawyer gave us about 5,000 pages. And that included the medical records of February 4th that this judge impounded. She made the mistake of her life.
Yes.
When she did that.
Because there's only one truth and so many lies. So they can tell each other lies, but the proof is there.
It's a thorn in Massachusetts in Commonwealth body. That February 4th record. Because we have it in our hands.
This ineffective counsel, it takes such an emotional toll on families, not just the defendants. And I want to ask you about that. How would you tell, in so few words, how would you describe that emotional toll?
It's unbearable. That's my one word. Because it affects everyone in the family. It doesn't affect just my son. My son couldn't sleep in there. I couldn't sleep at home. My parents couldn't sleep. Nobody could sleep. It was like, this kid, there's no way. Nobody could sleep. We dropped weight right away. And we'd like this. And guess what bothers me even more?
Mm-hmm.
All these things, they have CJC, Commission Against, a company that you can report a judge to. And then
Mm-hmm.
every report I file, I'm like, yay, I did something.
Mm-hmm.
Every time I file a complaint, I'm like, yay, I'm waiting for the complaint. I'm waiting for the results. Nothing.
Oh
And you know
yes.
what? Wrongful conviction it never involves one person. It's a corrupt thing.
Yes.
It's
It's many stars aligning for it to happen.
Yes, because even this uh, wrongful conviction, the
Mm-hmm.
prosecutor was involved. The judge was very corrupt and gave a
Mm-hmm.
leeway to the
Right.
prosecutor. And then you have the defense lawyer who skips every step.
Right.
Now, do you know
That would
what?
help.
Yes, there was
Mm-hmm.
one thing I want to mention to you.
Yes.
We had something called an evidentiary hearing.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, I told you that this district attorney is a black man. Okay, it means nothing now. But the article that's written by a group of lawyers particularly targeted Suffolk County. This is Suffolk County in Boston.
Mm-hmm.
We in Massachusetts, we're the number 2 to wrongly convict on rape at the Suffolk County.
Right.
They particularly said, and Suffolk County is run by, is led by a black man. And you
Right.
would think he would have some kind of sense to,
Right.
guess what? This men also have a department called Integrity Review Board.
Wow.
It was created by previous district attorneys.
Right. Well, physician, heal thyself.
But listen to that. Listen to that. I called somebody and then I explained the case and then somebody sent us an application.
Mm-hmm.
We filled it out, sent it in 2021. And then in 2022, they requested a new application. Listen to this.
Mm-hmm.
We sent it again. 2021, they had it. They requested a new one. The first one I did myself for my son, and
Right.
I sent it in because it doesn't necessarily have to be the defendant. It can be a family member, and
Mm-hmm.
no family member better than his mother, right? Because
Obviously,
I
yes.
leave everything.
You
Exactly.
birth him. There's nothing more that
2021.
beat that. Yes.
And then 2022, guess who did the application? A lawyer. In 2022, a lawyer
Yes.
filled it out, sent it to the prison for my son to sign it
Right.
and initial every question. Listen to this. And my son did initial every, and the lawyer kept a copy, gave me a copy. It's almost like what they're doing, they think no one else is watching.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody should lose their job because of this case.
Yes.
Anyway, so the lawyer sent it to the prison. My son initial each and every question and then sign it. Guess what? 2022, my lawyer start getting, my son's lawyer, of course, start
Right.
getting in contact with the Integrity Review Board. And
Mm-hmm.
we spoke with somebody, and I can't mention names. And they back and forth, sending record back, talking to the lawyer. And then I heard they were so close to resolving the case. All they had to do was a meeting.
Right.
Wait a minute, 2022, 2023, 2024, they wrote us a letter, they say, sorry, the application was not signed. 2 years later. And then when and I have all the emails that they sent back
Right.
and forth. They say, it's like all of a sudden, because when they see that they have to declare this a wrongful conviction, all of a sudden the application was not signed. And I have the signed application. I can even send you if you want.
Mm-hmm.
And they lost their minds. They're so wicked.
Yes. Yes.
But what they don't know is this case is a
Mm-hmm.
thorn in someone, in their body.
Right.
Because we
Right.
have everything.
And after all of this, do you think public trust in the criminal justice system can be restored? If
Not
so,
for
what
me.
would
I
get it
don't.
there?
Not for- A lot of people I
Nothing.
know don't trust them,
Okay, well,
but
if it
me,
was up to you to
I don't
fix it,
trust
what would
them.
you do?
What would I do to fix it is to put somebody with something called integrity and character as
Right.
a
Not just
leader.
someone who runs the
Somebody who
department
will
that is
not
called that.
turn. Yeah, because the
So,
people in there now, I don't think they have any characters. I'm sorry.
mhm,
The people in there now, they just want their paycheck weekly. The people in
right.
there now are just as co-op as long as they're getting their checks. I'm sorry. That's how I look at it now.
Yes, yeah. What about the media's look? How has the media coverage helped or maybe hurt
Well, I
public understanding?
haven't, well, maybe it can go both ways with the media, but
Hmm.
I haven't so much done until now after the book that I'm putting things that out
Right,
there. But
right,
that will educate the population, that will educate the people, of course.
right,
And the media, I have to say, eh, they're a little better than our leaders. I'm
right, right.
sorry, because
L-
it took them 2 years, 21, 22, 23, 24, 3 years
yeah,
to say the
a
application.
letter
And
is
the
not
application
signed.
was signed. And I have the
Hmm.
signed application and initials
Yes,
and
you have a
request for
copy.
I have a copy. And guess
Yes,
what?
so does a lawyer.
Somebody wrote a letter. And guess
Right.
what? One more thing I want to tell you.
Hmm.
I keep calling the district attorney's office and I let them know how deranged, how crazy they are. And I
Hmm.
let them know we have copies of things. And I let them know how terribly they're doing. And I let them know how Massachusetts is #2 in the nation to wrongly convict on rape. And I tell them, I know why, based on my son's case. My God, I'll be the first one to write that review for them. You
Hmm.
know?
Hmm.
Yeah. And one more thing I want to tell you about lab results.
Right.
There's one particular thing that happened, and I take this. I told you the trial prosecutor is fired, but the very first prosecutor should also be fired for incompetence. They charged my son with 2 counts of STDs.
Mm.
Okay, and
Right.
then and it just so happened that I didn't find it until this year, last year. I missed it after I
Right.
read the transcript 2 or 3 times. And then I found it. Guess what it says? It says the lab results, and I gave it to your friend there, and he can show you. It
Hmm.
says the lab result you had for chlamydia and gonorrhea, the results are negative. Negative.
Hmm.
Okay.
Negative, yes.
Okay. And guess what? And guess what? The prosecutor, the original prosecutor, which was a woman, she
Hmm.
knew this information May 23rd, 2017.
Right.
She didn't do anything about it. She charged my son when that lady went and got tested and it's negative.
Right.
And just in 2019, this trial started May 16, 2019, and my son was still charged with those 2 STDs when the original prosecutor got the results 2 years ago.
Right.
She
And it
still
was
said
negative.
that negative.
Mm. Right. I, n-
So
oh,
tell
oh,
me if not, we are I'm surprised we're not #1.
right, right, right. I mean, it's hard to imagine what is happening in
And do you
number
know what
one.
I read? If you go to Google and say how to prove a corrupt prosecutor, or if
Mhm.
you even say prosecutorial misconduct, that's
Right.
right up there, charging without evidence. And then they charge my son with no rape kit.
Hmm.
And somebody who has bipolar, and if you Google bipolar and lying too, you will
Right.
see how they
Yes.
embellish it and they
It's a mental
right.
illness and should
A
be
fraud.
examined
Yes.
under a mental illness's lens. You can't just treat it as anything, just a regular
Right.
person. I mean,
Oh, this
the
is
bipolar
crazy.
person would be first to tell you that they are not
Thank you.
regular. And
Right.
I
And
just
one
want
more
to ask
thing.
you, yes, please, go ahead.
Yes. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I want to ask you about the book because now that some time has passed, um, and I want to see how you reflect on your writing process and how you reflect on your writing. If you were to write another book, which I would hope you do, would you approach it in any different way?
Yes, I would now do footnotes
Hmm.
and show and prove in the back for people
Right.
to not just go look, but it's right there, and they can
Hmm.
just,
So they can link story to
clarify.
reality.
Yes.
Hmm.
Because this thing about Massachusetts being number 2 in the nation to wrongly convict of rape,
Right.
I should have put that as a footnote
Hmm.
in the back
Right.
of the
Right.
book.
Or
No,
I
this,
wanted to
this
ask you if there are any stories that you would want to add to the book.
uh, yes, in a different way. Because, like, the mother of the accuser,
Hmm.
by the way, my son was the second Black boyfriend. And I hired a private investigator. I
Hmm.
find out that they did similar thing to the first Black boyfriend. The
Ah,
only reason it didn't, my, the
a
only
serial
reason,
accuser.
that's it. The difference is his dad was a police officer, did some stuff,
Right.
investigation, and because it happened at a high school.
Right.
Yes,
Right. Right.
it happened
Right.
at a high school. The social worker interviewed, and then they pull out the truth. They
Right.
pull the
Right.
truth out with the right questions. When my
Absolutely.
son was dealing with a public defendant who was 85 years old, who could have been
Shouldn't even be
demented,
practicing.
and you're dealing with a racist judge,
Hmm.
who thinks maybe all Black men belong in prison, and
Hmm.
a racist prosecutor. So my son had no advocate to
Right.
pull the right questions, the answers out, except
Absolutely.
they got together and plotted, and
Hmm.
then waste another Black life. But little did they know that I had resilience, and I could
Absolutely.
read, and I could understand medical record. They underestimated me, which was their downfall. The judge is no
Right.
longer a judge, and the prosecutor is disgraced. And I think a lot more people should be
Right.
disgraced
Absolutely. Miss
because of
Claudette,
this.
I believe you can pass the bar by the knowledge you accumulated since
Thank you.
this whole trial happened.
No,
But
that inspires me. I want to become an advocate because of this.
genuinely believe that you can
Yes.
because you maintain I can see it. I can hear it in your voice. I can see it in your face. I can read between the lines of your answers. You maintain a lot of hope. You maintain a
Oh,
lot of
yes.
motivation.
Well, you have to
Uh,
maintain hope when you have the evidence
yes,
right here. And guess what?
obviously,
One more
yes.
thing I forgot to tell you. This
Yes.
trial judge, the racist trial judge,
Hmm.
the February 4th record is the record in question.
Hmm.
Do you know she impounded it only for one side only?
Ah,
And I was told that a judge has to be, first of all, a trial judge has to make sure that the defendant's rights are being preserved. This one
mm,
was smashing it with a hammer
right. Right. Yes.
because she's racist.
Hmm.
And then because she lost her mind in that courtroom. They're a disgrace because when you look at Lady Justice, she's blindfolded.
Right.
What's the purpose of Lady Justice being blindfolded when you when you impound the record that has the exculpatory or the exonerating evidence?
Hmm.
How dare she? It has, and do you know the jury never knew about the February 4th record? I
Right.
don't
They
even
kept it
blame
from.
it was impounded.
Right.
And the only
They were
thing I'm talking
manipulated.
about, manipulated. And guess
Hmm.
what? She impounded it for the defense lawyer.
Mm.
She also did a defense lawyer that was already very poor, that didn't investigate, didn't hire any
Right.
experts.
God knows what the money was going to.
Yeah, well, it stayed. I thought they did something, but I found out that the money remained in the state's government
Oh,
because it's at the CPCS level. He didn't take it. It stayed because he wasn't there to protect my son. He
and he was
was there
85
to,
years old. I mean, it didn't have much to do.
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. One more thing I want to tell you, and I want the public to know.
Yes.
The prosecutor was allowed to present the February 4th record
Mm.
as exhibit evidence, like as evidence against my son.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like this judge did illegal stuff. She has to
Right.
be prosecuted, even if she left the bench. How do you impound something just for one side and yet allow the other side to use it as exhibit evidence? No wonder this prosecutor thanked the judge out loud on transcript for leeway.
Right.
And I think that's what got him fired. Because I
And
sent the leeway page to everyone who was someone.
you spread it like wildfire. You were
You
just,
have no idea. Yes, that I do. That I did.
well,
I'm guilty of.
you have the passion of a mother fighting for her son. Obviously,
No, that's
there is
right.
no bigger motivation I wouldn't imagine.
Exactly,
Right.
exactly,
But
exactly.
how do you maintain it dealing with such
I maintain
heavy and
with
systematic
prayers.
injustice?
God gave me the strength because
Mm-hmm.
I keep going and I will continue going until they do the right thing in this case.
Right.
They're too shameful. They're shameless. They have no shame, no character, no integrity. How do people like that become judges? It's a mistake.
Right. Right. And this proposes a question about the book itself. What could you say there were some ethical or legal considerations that you had to consider to weigh in when deciding, which real life stories to include in the book or to
All of
omit?
the above, because they violated his constitutional rights. They
Mm-hmm.
lied. They used a car accident injury and presented it as an assault.
Wow.
The prosecutor, this young lady got into a car accident with my son, where she got 14 stitches on her eyebrow.
Mm-hmm.
The prosecutor at the trial presented it as an assault. They said my son beat her. When it was indeed, and I can even tell you the page if a lawyer is watching me now, page 5174 and 5175. Her mother's own testimonies on the bench
Right.
says, yes, the car accident occurred on December 6th. And they say, ma'am, when did you take the pictures of the assault on your daughter's eyebrow? Oh, I took the picture on December 7th. The car
Wow.
accident occurred on December 6th, where they had to give her 14 stitches.
And then the picture
And then
happened.
the next day, she took the picture and she testified to the jurors it
Right.
was an assault. When
And
it was a
during
car
when she testified, did she show her time machine that she used
Yes, she
to
showed
take the picture?
that it was he beat her. And
Wow.
guess what? She did sue, I mean, with the car accident, and
Mm-hmm.
and she deserved it. It's well deserved because she was injured. She
Mm-hmm.
had the 14 stitches. And guess what? They presented it as so my son is convicted of rape and assault
Right.
because of this 14 stitches from the car accident injury. So this prosecutor is disgraced, yes, but my son is still in there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yes, my son is
Right.
still in there. So this has to be made right, whole, but it has to be repaired, be fixed.
Absolutely. Speaking of being fixed, I want to close it up on this one. If you could sit from across one of the policymakers with the power to enact real change, maybe in 1 minute, that's all the time you have with this policymaker, what would you say to them?
I would say that the first thing, indictment by itself, the one-way indictment thing has to change. The very beginning from district court to superior court, with the one-sided thing, that has to change, because if only one side is allowed to present their evidence, they're gonna do it in a way that nobody can,
Yeah,
it's
they
only
can make
their
the narrative on their own.
exactly. And this trial judge controlled the narrative. I feel that every wrongful conviction, by the way, I concluded that wrongful conviction is no accident. It's a group of people getting together to do this. And every wrongful conviction, I think they should punish everybody. Punish the judge, the prosecutor and or investigate and find where the problem came from and take their license away.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Absolutely.
sometimes it's a witness who lies, so it's not always the judge. They should
Yes.
investigate and deal with it accordingly.
Right.
Because
right.
in my son's case, the police failed to order a rape kit. In my son's case, the defense lawyer skipped all the steps, didn't
Yes.
investigate, didn't hire anyone, didn't call any witnesses, nobody. So this guy, he died. By the way, I filed a complaint against that lady from Bar Overseers. And
Right.
guess what? Nothing came of it because it wasn't any, it was a phone call, a
Mm.
harassing phone call. Instead of saying they'll investigate this case, she came at me like with something like she wants to beat me up. I see
Right.
you filing a complaint
Aggression.
against a dead lawyer. A dead lawyer, but my son is there 6 years. And
Mm-hmm.
he wasn't dead when he did this. Do
Right.
something.
Why are you caring so much about the dead and not caring about the people who are living?
Because they're
Right.
afraid to say they're afraid to call it what it is because they're gonna
Right.
have to. There are some ramifications behind it.
Right. Well,
That's shameful.
very, very, very shameful. But that is our time. Well, thank you so much for joining us on this
It's a
meaningful
pleasure.
episode. It has been a pleasure talking to you.
It's a
This
pleasure.
has been a great time, but also a very informative time and a very, I hope, empowering. I hope this reaches as many people as it can, and I hope people would take interest in enacting actual change. This has been an episode of the BrightWord Books Podcast. We hope today's discussion shed a new light on the real life impact of ineffective legal counsel and the emotional toll, as we discussed, that it takes on families. Justice Denied is more than a book, as I said at the beginning of this call, and I hope we've made a good case, forgive the pun there, for it not being just a book. It's a call to action. It's a voice for the voiceless and a reminder that even in the face of overwhelming injustice, faith and love can prevail. To dive deeper into Kara's journey and everything that we talked about and the powerful lessons within, I generally ask you to grab your copy of Justice in the Night today. It's available on Amazon, Barnes and Nobles. Go get it. And with that being said, I hope you have a good time. Claudette, any goodbyes you would like to say to the people before we go on?
Well, I thank everyone for listening, and I hope that they pick up a copy and contact you if they have a question for me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, that being said, until next time, keep reading, keep questioning, and never stop believing in the power of a story to spark change. Thank you very much.
You've been listening to the BrightWord Books Podcast, home of the literary community that celebrates creativity, inclusivity, and the transformative power of literature. Don't forget to subscribe so you'll never miss future episodes. Until next time, stay informed and stay engaged.